Two suspects are now charged in connection with Wednesday's shooting in Kansas City.
Yeah, nearly 24 people were shot. One person died. Investigators say they don't believe the shooting was related to terrorism or homegrown violent extremism. Here's ABC's Morgan Norwood with the details from Kansas City.
Two juvenile suspects are facing multiple charges in this deadly shooting that sent thousands running for cover during the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl victory parade.
This appeared to be a dispute between several people that ended in gunfire.
Authorities aren't naming the two suspects due to their age, but they say they face gun-related and resisting arrest charges. Two men seen in this video being praised by police for taking down one of the suspects.
I didn't hesitate. It was just do it.
I heard that get him. I saw a flash next to me.
23 people shot, at least half of them children. Some of the injured taken to Mercy Children's Hospital.
We treated 12 patients, 11 of which were children ranging in ages from 6 to...
All right, guys, so we got to talk about a very satisfying clip from Bill Maher's show featuring Van Jones and Coulter, who are discussing the shooting that took place at the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade, okay? And as of now, we have not identified the suspects that committed this mass shooting. What we know is that they are two juveniles, and everybody knows what that means, okay? They're two astronauts, right, aka young scholars, that committed this shooting. And we're not going to learn their identities because we know that their identities would not fit the narrative that the mainstream liberal media wants to push in regards to who commits mass shootings in America the most, right? They really don't want to talk about the mass shootings that occur in these inner liberal cities. In fact, they don't even characterize these shootings or acts of violence as mass shootings. They never talk about mass shootings in that context. They want you to think that the only mass shootings that occur in America occurs when there's a certain demographic, aka white people, that go into a school or some public space and shoot it up. Then at that point, they want to call it a mass shooting, okay? And they want to talk about it, and they want to focus on identity and talk about why the suspect did it. They want to get deep, okay, into the suspect, whether he was MAGA, whether he was a Trump supporter, now if he's a leftist, okay, or if he has an identity that doesn't go along with the woke agenda, then, you know, they sweep it on the rug, okay? They don't really talk about it. It kind of leads the news cycle, kind of like the mass shooting that happened recently at Joel Osteen's church when they found out that the suspect that committed the mass shooting is trans. Yeah, they haven't talked about it, right? They're not going to talk about it, and they move on, right? And that's essentially what's happening with this Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl story, in which they are not revealing the identities. They're not trying to speculate the identities of these two juveniles who committed this heinous act of violence, which apparently was a personal dispute, okay? They apparently were arguing, and it got violent, okay? And they don't really want to talk about this, which in my opinion, I think is representative of most of the gun violence that we see in this country, but they only want to talk about it in the context of, again, a white male committing these acts of violence. And Coulter, who is conservative, but I don't think she likes Trump very much, is going to stun Bill Maher and Van Jones when she tells this inconvenient truth about why we don't know the complete identities of these two juveniles, astronauts, who committed this act of violence at the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade. Take a look.
I mean, we don't know who did this shooting, by the way, the Super Bowl shooting.
We have some idea.
What?
If it were a white man shooting, we'd know.
Well, we don't know, but they haven't.
That's how we know it's not a white man. I can tell you that much.
You think they were repressing that reporting?
They wouldn't tell us about the transgender woman that shot up the Christian school for what, like a year? San Bernardino out here. Remember the crazy terrorist Muslims? That's when I first noticed, they're not telling us who it is. It's not a white male. The longer they go without telling you, it's not a white male.
Okay, well, for this one, for right now, as of Friday night, February 16th.
We know.
We don't officially know. Okay, you know, you have special powers. But
the media who do not care about blacks killing blacks, and this is the one time where I think, you always hear, pretty white girl, they'll cover that. No, the blacks killing blacks will not get covered by the media. That's a huge media problem, and you'll all laugh at me, but I'm going to say it because I'm right.
Very right.
Because of this
Far right.
is illegitimacy. All of these young men do not have fathers, and that is a huge, huge source of it. Anything that could be done to reduce the illegitimacy rate, particularly among the black community, it would be astronomical, the changes you'd see. Do you know, just one fact, if you take away the factor of illegitimacy, the difference in the black and the white crime rate disappears.
You know,
it's an amazing fact.
It would be an amazing fact if it were true, but you know that. But look,
Well,
I mean,
it is a big part of it.
listen, I've got two very small children. I've got my eye on this problem a lot. You know, I'm trying to raise black kids here in Los Angeles. I'm not a part of the pro-crime lobby.
Yeah, so while Van Jones may believe that he's not a part of the pro-crime lobby, he is a part of the pro-crime Democrat Party, okay? So the fact that he's a part of the Democrat Party means that he, by definition, by association, is a part of the pro-crime lobby because the Democrat Party is pro-crime. So with that being said, apparently common sense is a superpower according to Bill Maher, because Bill Maher basically is saying that, hey, well, we don't know much about the suspects that committed this mass shooting at the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade, when we actually do know, right? We have pictures and evidence that indicates that, the shooters don't fit the narrative. And the fact that the media and police aren't giving the identities or describing what the suspects look like also confirms that these suspects are in fact not white. Because if they were white, okay, if it was a white teenager, it doesn't matter if they're a juvenile. They only use the excuse of, well, it's a juvenile, so we can't tell you who they are. They only use that when they're black, right? If they're white and they're a juvenile, you're going to know immediately, right? So, for example, you're going to know immediately about a white juvenile mass shooter. For example, do you guys remember Ethan Crumbley, the white juvenile mass shooter? He was 15 years old, shot up the Michigan high school. The media identified him immediately. Okay, we knew who it was immediately. They weren't hiding his identity. And he's also been charged as an adult. I believe he actually got sentenced to life in prison, even though he committed the act at the age of 15 years old. Got charged with murder and terrorism. Now, these two young astronauts, when it comes to this Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade, while, again, it wasn't that level of mass shooting, it wasn't a school shooting, you still had 20 plus people shot, one person dead, and they still have not revealed the identities of the suspects. And at this point, they have some minor charges, but they don't have murder charges yet. I think that they probably will get some tougher charges here in the future. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but I do believe, I have faith in the system that they will get tougher charges. I think that the not as serious charges that they have right now is to try to keep them in jail, okay, until they actually can slap tougher charges on them. But regardless, again, if they're white, you would know, right? You would know immediately, okay? I think that the juvenile label is a label that is used, at least today, is used to make excuses for hiding the identities of suspects that don't fit the narrative, okay? And Coulter is right. They don't talk about it if they can't push the white male mass shooter narrative. I mean, it is what it is. Again, common sense apparently is a superpower according to Bill Maher. And you can tell that Van Jones was triggered by this common sense from Coulter because of that silly smile on his face in response to what she was saying. But he really gets triggered when he brings up the fact that, not only does the media not talk about when you have, mass shooters that don't fit the narrative, but they also don't talk about black on black crime. Even though they claim they care about black lives so much, they don't talk about black on black crime, even though the rate of black on black homicides was almost 5 times the rate of white on white homicides back in 2019. Okay, so you have what seems to be an epidemic of black on black homicides, right? Almost 5 times the rate of whites, okay? Even though, black people are 1/5 of the white population, but apparently this is something that the media is not concerned about, even though they tell us that, hey, black lives matter, but they don't want to talk about it, again, because it's inconvenient to the narrative. It's very inconvenient. And if you bring up this inconvenient fact, instead of disputing your fact, right, with another fact, no, what they're going to do is say, well, you're racist, right? You're racist, you're anti-black, you're far right, which is what Van Jones accused and Coulter of being, simply for bringing up facts. Again, according to Van Jones, facts are far right. And it's just amazing how that works, okay? Facts are anti-black and they're far right, and they're racist, okay? They love to label things as bigotry that they disagree with, right? Facts are bigotry. What she also brought up, which is something that, again, we don't talk about enough, but the left is trying to change the narrative on this, which is the crisis of fatherless children. Something else that triggered Van Jones, okay, that Ann Coulter brought up, and she's 100% right about the fact that this is the main factor when you talk about poverty and crime, and the left loves to talk about the relationship between poverty and crime. But the fact is this, about 38% of black children are living in two-parent households. And if you are a black child living in a single-parent home, then you're about 3.5 times more likely to be in poverty, right? But when you talk about these statistics, when it comes to fatherless children and crime, it's very straightforward, right? That this is a big problem that the left really doesn't want to talk about. This is what we actually really should be talking about on a daily basis in the news. Anytime we're talking about crime, anytime we're talking about the young scholar problem in this country, we really do need to be looking at this data and trying to figure out how do we solve this issue, right? Like, for example, father absence as a predictor of violence is robust for both male and female violence. 70% of juveniles in state-operated institutions come from single-parent homes. Individuals from father-absent homes are 279% more likely to carry guns and deal drugs than their peers. Most adolescents who enter the justice system have suffered from parental abandonment, substance abuse, or a dysfunctional household. In a study of 75 juvenile delinquents, 66% experienced fatherlessness, 20% had never lived with their father, and 25% had an alcoholic father. It has been reported that fatherless children are anywhere from 3 to 20 times more likely to be incarcerated than children raised in dual-parent households. 71% of teachers and 90% of law enforcement officials state that the lack of parental supervision at home is a major factor that contributes to violence in schools. In a study of 56 school shootings, only 10 of the shooters, 18%, were raised in a stable home with both biological parents. 82% grew up in either an unstable family environment or grew up without both biological parents together. I think that that's very underestimated in regards to the effect of a child not being raised by his biological parents. In fact, that's not something that's talked about enough. The fact that, not only is it important to have a nuclear family, but I feel like it's important for a child to be raised by his biological parents, okay? Because I think that the instability of, parents breaking up and going through divorce can be emotionally traumatic for children. And having to experience that and going through that could also be a factor in them leading a life of crime because they're in more poverty or because they experience more kind of adversity. Maybe they're seeing more violence in the home, stuff like that. I think that that's important. In fact, I don't think that I would ever allow a woman that has my biological child to be with another man, right? If I have a child with a woman, I am not going to leave that woman. That is going to be my woman for the rest of my life if I can help it, right? If I can help it, she ain't going nowhere, okay? I will sacrifice because at the end of the day, I believe that it's that important, okay? It really is. I'm not going to let another man raise my kids. Some data suggests 72% of adolescent murderers and 70% of long-term prison inmates come from fatherless homes. Children who feel closeness to their father are 80% less likely to spend time in jail. 75% of adolescent patients in substance abuse centers are from fatherless homes. Of America's roughly 2 million prisoners, over 800,000 are parents, and 92% of those are fathers. Around 2.7 million children have at least one parent in prison. Yeah, so this is from the America First Policy Institute. All of these facts are facts that people like Van Jones would find to be inconvenient, right? Inconvenient to his narrative. It's inconvenient to the media's narrative. And this is why people like him get triggered when they hear these simple facts about the fact that the media won't cover certain crimes and mass shootings if the identities of the suspect don't fit the narrative, and also how they don't cover black on black crime, which, you know, again, in my opinion, I think is something that the people that claim they care about black lives so much should care about if their ideology was consistent, right? If what they say they care about, they actually cared about, they will cover that. But they don't. They only care about black lives when they can race hustle off of it, you know, try to, I don't know, start a riot or to make some money, claiming that the country is systemically racist and that everything is the white man's fault, right? That's when they actually really care about black lives, is when black lives can be used for their own political gain and clout. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.